Who are you? When no one else sees. Tucked away in the region of Champs lies Maison Buis. It's a small-scale artist residency, home to perhaps 3 artists at a time. It is run by a woman named Martina, in what was once a forgotten nunnery. The second day I found a typewriter. I never used one before, but something about it seemed right. I threaded the ink with my bare hands. It was stuck beneath my fingertips for many days. The first thing I wrote was a poem. There were many quiet days, especially at the beginning. The house had its own flow, and I was just getting to know it. My mornings were always like this, filled with a sort of unspoken space that held only possibility. And in the quiet time of what became very long days, I began to paint. It was one of those things I had always been itching to try, but never had. It became the benchmark of my day-to-day.
Very different today. Very different. It's all about the feeling.
There's a pace that changes when you're outside the rhythm of your normal life. Time seeps in abundance, and it measures itself in silence. There was a lot of that here. I felt like it today. There are so many stories I could tell you about this time. By this time, I had found my own pace. I would wake up in the mornings and paint, and then I would leave the afternoon to write. Each day was a new rhythm of this, seen only in the ways that my paintings would change. If I was having a harder time writing, my painting would be less fluid. The two balanced each other out. It helped me let go of whatever I was standing behind.
You love the crunch, don't you? Oh.
She's looking good. They're the best.
Yeah. Vamos! Well done, Martina.
Oh, I missed it.
No,
It's still here.
That is beautiful. Imagine what it's like in Bordeaux, going off the sea.
What? It has to be amazing. I
Yeah.
will go Saturday to see it.
Just put more to it.
Tape de retrovisor. Now you're off the camera, it's on the mirror.
And do you want more glasses for the wine?
For people who want wine.
Yep.
Really?
This is the wine I got in my phone.
Yeah, get the cup of glass.
Who would like one?
Three. You, Martina?
No, I'm gonna have these.
Anything to do?
Like one.
What's your name?
My name is Andrew Anson.
And I have 2 questions for you. Actually I have 3 questions for you. How long have you been at Maison Buis?
I've been here almost 2 weeks.
What has been your favorite moment?
I think just waking up to the green space here and feeling kind of the history and being able to start a new day, sitting down at a desk that overlooks the garden is my favorite part.
And what have you been working on?
So I've been writing about 2 historical characters, the Emperor Hadrian and his lover that died young, Antinous. Sort of another way to tell their story and sort of the myth of who they are in a way that hasn't been told.
And why do you write?
It's a great question. I think I would have answered it differently even like 10 years ago. I would have said books are my favorite things and aspiring to be a writer seems like a noble thing, and to have your ideas known and cherished and shared in an intimate way. I can think of no more intimate way than have somebody read that. But I think I would add to that, those are all still true. I just think that they're not enough. And I think of stories and big projects like writing a book being kind of like birthing something. And if you're only birthing something because for vanity or for reasons for you, I think it's not enough of a reason to have dedicated your life to working on something like that. So with the Antinous and Hadrian story, came to a point where I decided it was a story that needed to be told, specifically because this myth, I think, creates a useful mythology for thinking about psychedelic experiences, which I've been thinking a lot about in in my day job and my work as a psychedelic assisted psychotherapist, and how a lot of the mythologies that do help people make sense of mystical experiences are based on heterosexual or heteronormative kind of archetypes for heroes and characters. I had a colleague sort of bring up that there's a sort of an absence of there being gay mythologies. And so when I researched more about the Antinous and Hadrian story, I realized that would be a natural sort of mythology that was kind of been lost. And that for me has made a difference in deciding this would be the project I would focus on here. It was a great opportunity to be able to sit with those characters and that history and to have something come out of it.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Andrew.
Siempre tuvo gusto a nada, apretando los dedos, agarrándome, dándole mi vida.
So I'm currently in Charente in France, and I've been here at an artist residency called Maison Buis, and I have had the most incredible time. It's been a really profound 18 days, and I have about that much left. I've been feeling this sort of gentle space in which I sort of felt my inspiration grow, and I knew it was building into something that I didn't quite see yet, but I felt it. And this past year of my life has been a lot of really deep healing. What is it to be whole? What is it to be creative? Not in the way that anyone else has defined it, but what do these things mean for me? What does peace look like for me? What does it feel within me, in my body, in my day-to-day? A lot of it sort of does revolve around writing, not necessarily in the act of it. But the other night at dinner, Martina, who was the host, she asked me why I write, and I told her, without really thinking, that it was a way of realizing myself. And I think that's really true. And so I've been doing a lot of healing this year. In all the ways I was living in my own limitations and building myself in boxes. It's been a year of liberation, and I think in some ways it was always building up to this. My story developed in an interesting way. Last year in Kalamakia, I started this different project that is now sort of morphed into a greater beginning of the one that I'm currently working on. But this project provided the foundations, and it was sort of the extent of all that I knew and was eager to express. And it was always very distinctly a male voice I was speaking from, which always was curious to me. And I worked on that book for a while until it no longer felt a part of me. I stopped resonating with it. And it's a really interesting place to be in, because that book had in some ways become my identity, even though it was unfinished. So much of myself and the person I was becoming was in there, in that process. And to say it's no longer the story that I want to write, to turn around and walk away from all of that, is a very liberating thing. But it took a lot of courage, I think, for me to do so. And I haven't really written for a couple of months now, but I had this residency in August. And so this whole summer, I've been sort of retracing my steps, experiencing life with more of myself, I think. Inspiration grew like a spark out of nothing into something, just in the feeling within me. I had no idea what I was going to write. And so I sat down on the second day I was here, and I just wrote. I wrote like that for about 2 weeks. I would just sit, and it would almost be just this stream of consciousness, but it wasn't even thought. It was so unconscious, so unthought, just words flowing through me. And I wrote. And I did not look back and read over anything else I had written. When I felt myself getting really sort of heavy in my own energy, feeling frustrated or stuck, I would stop and I would go and paint. Painting has been, I think, a really wonderful medium to balance myself with. As I'm working on one sort of very cerebral project, painting offers such a vibrant and freeing expression that's different. I can just use colors, I don't have to think, it's so instinctual, it's immediate. And then you have an immediate reflection of something. And my whole mantra with painting, it doesn't have to be good, I just want it to be interesting. And so far, I've been intrigued by the things that I've made. It's just nice and it's rare to discover things in life that make you feel more like yourself. And eventually I got to this point where my writing, the stream sort of stopped. And I just knew within me it was time for me to look back at what I've written. Turns out that there was a story there. This book is written now from the third person perspective. And it's spoken from a very feminine voice. And it's of a feminine heroine, which is a complete divergence from writing in the masculine voice that I'd started my book or project on last year. When I tend to write with sort of a masculine voice or the masculine energy or the character, whatever it is, it tends to be in really dense prose and very literal and direct. And then when I sat down to write this, it was entirely different from that, and it was very feminine. And now I realize too, when I'm sort of writing in that sense of feeling or energy, it tends to develop itself in a rhythm, it rhymes, and it sort of becomes poetry. And I came to this impasse where when I was consciously writing the story that I discovered I sort of knew within me, I would start writing in one energy that was very feminine and was very akin to poetry, and it would switch into prose, and then it would switch back into poetry, but it didn't have the balance, and so I would be getting stuck being distinctly prose or distinctly poetry, and it was really frustrating because I would get boxed into it without really trying, and it made writing and progress really hard because I would have to think about things so much. The process of coming up with a story, that came to me intuitively. I think I'm being very intentional with the way that I want to tell it now, and so a lot of this is me trying things and scrapping them when I feel they no longer work. But what I've learned so far is how to stay open, to not tie myself into any one thing and limit my creative expression to one word, one way, one story, but allow the story to keep developing itself. I would get so literal, I think, in my process of writing that once I had an idea, okay, I'm gonna write about this, it became known and static and fixed. And at some point, because of my own rigidity, my book suffered. I didn't allow it to grow in the places it wanted to grow and shrink in the places it was necessary to. And now in my time here, I've been allowing sort of the birth of this story and its beginning stages especially to be without form and to try it one way and then say like, okay, that doesn't quite feel like what I feel the story is in my bones. My progress has been measured in those steps and the flexibility to try and try again and to not get afraid of starting over, knowing that the story isn't going to go anywhere. It's just a matter of getting comfortable with how I want to express it. And so in that way, it's been a really liberating past 18 days.
Isn't she good?
Yeah, that is quite something.
The Tess is doing these amazing work.
So, I wanted to say thank you all for giving me a very safe space to share this story. It's not something I normally do. I'm very private with my writing, even with my friends. But it will never be like face to face with somebody, so it's a different experience for me to be able to share this.
Well, that makes it even more special.
Yeah, and so the last of the light remained within, and remembered itself as one, safe and whole and hers to realize, in reverence she became undone. And this is where our story begins. That's all.
Wow.
Wow, indeed.
Wow.
Ah.
Just, something exciting. Also, I need to spend money on the new rug because I want to buy a new rug.
Yeah.
But it's different style, that's why I still got it.
Yeah.
So.
So you play without any...
That's all improvised. Yeah.
I feel like it's time for me to do a little bit of a catch-up just on what I've been doing here at this retreat, because I've been here for going on 29, almost 30 days now, and I've taken very few videos. The only thing I can say to sort of explain that is I've been busy creating something else. And it's hard when you're in the flow of developing a project to take yourself out, to be almost the observer to yourself, as this camera sort of is to me. I've been really dedicating myself to writing this book this novella, this project that I hope one day will become something bigger than me. It's a story that sort of found me, or sort of a story that I realized I've always held within myself, and now it's finally time to tell it. And I think what brought me here to sit down and talk about it is the fact that I feel really grateful to be able to do something that I love. For a while, I lost my connection to writing, which I think is a difficult, under-discussed thing for creative people, is when you stop resonating with something that you've been working on for a very long time. Even just devoting yourself to a specific creative practice, whether it's writing songs or writing poetry. We grow into something, we grow out of something. And it's hard when we're constantly changing as individuals to be steadfast within one project and expect that to not reflect our own individual changes as people. And so for me, the book that I was working on last summer, it was the book I was meant to work on last summer, but it's not the book that I meant to work on now. I had to learn when it was time for me to step away from one project and give myself space to rediscover what it is that I actually want to write. And it was really important for me to sit in the unknown for a while without any expectation, not holding myself accountable or responsible for creating something, and just let myself live as a creative person in the world. To be an artist is simply a way of being in the world. It's a way of experiencing the world, internally, externally, relating to things, however you want to put it. And sometimes that gets channeled into creating something too. Maybe that's a book or a movie or a painting. It's all sort of a relationship between yourself and something else that makes you feel alive or inspired. Writing lost that quality for me, which was essential to whatever I was trying to write or to create, to give it that sense of feeling, and I needed to discover it again. And so somehow, some way, I did. I found myself with a story to tell, and now I've just been itching to tell. And I've never written as much in my whole life as I have in these past 30 days. I want to be very candid about my process. It hasn't been easy. I have this very clear story in my mind. I know what I'm writing about, but the process of almost channeling that vision through is not as simple as sitting down every day at the typewriter and writing for me. Writing is almost like an alchemical process for me. It's all about finding balance. For me to create anything, especially this story, it has to come from a very pure, honest, and open place from within. So the feeling that I'm trying to distill in these words finds its expression in them. That has to come from someplace very real and visceral within me. And so if I can't connect to that inner feeling, my writing suffers as a result. And it's not always something that I can control. And writer's block is a real thing. It's been equally about moving forward with this story that I now am like armed with, that I know I can tell, but managing the ebbs and flows as they come, understanding my process as a whole without judgment. When it is time for me to step away from the page, how to deal with that, because a lot of the time you sort of naturally tend to lean into doubt. You get to this point of unknowing, or you find something isn't quite working or clicking. It's equally as important for me to know how to deal with that as it is to sit down and write when I do feel inspired. Integral to being a creative person are the highs and the lows, you know? You don't succeed more so at one when you shut out the other completely. Writing, creating anything isn't a linear process, and I found that I do myself a really big disservice when I treat it as such. For me, it's been a real privilege to do what is difficult and do what is not easy, and do it all out of love. Writing can be work. A lot of it is discipline, rewriting and editing and dealing with the ugly, uncomfortable bits of creating something. I just feel really grateful to be able to dedicate myself to something that isn't always easy. I think we lose a lot of that. If things aren't quick or immediate, we often don't allow ourselves to realize we have the courage to tackle more difficult things, that we have the persistence within ourselves. And we can succeed in the end, you know? Just because something isn't immediate doesn't mean it's not ever going to happen. It's been really nice to reconnect with this part of myself. I think the biggest thing I want to say to anyone who's watching this video, I'm going to give a little bit of unsolicited advice, and that is to go deeper. Go deeper than you think you need to go with whatever it is in life. Go deeper than you think you need to go. I'm going to go to sleep now. What I love most about this retreat is that there's almost nobody around. My days were confined to simplicity, and yet I was almost never bored. There was always something to do, and the beauty of it was that it was obvious. I could paint or write. I could journal and go for a walk. I could strum a guitar or talk to Martina. My days here ebbed and flowed in the difference of their simplicity. And in that, the heart of it never changed. In the end, I was here almost 40 days. But of all things, it didn't really feel that long. It just felt like time. Like I was present through it all.
Which makes me read further, which makes me read more poetry, which makes me go into my feeling more. So, thank you, well done.
Yeah, very well done. Great.
I'm Martina.
And I'm Andrew.
How was dinner?
Lovely food, yeah.
We had pâte aux pommes de terre.
Tried and tested patio pommes.
Yes, it's a special dish from Central France. Yes, lively conversation. And we had some readings.
What is your favorite memory here?
Leaving.
Oh, that's a good question.
Your favourite memory? Gosh, I've got so many.
I think I know. For me, it's personal. It's when I was here alone. For 6 weeks, I didn't have the bathroom. And I know it sounds surreal. But then the water was connected and I had my bathroom connected. And I filled my bathtub with water. And I lay myself in the bath and I started to cry. Because it was so special to have a bath. It felt so luxurious and so special because I was living like a cat. And I was like dirty and tired. And it was end of October by then. So it was starting to get cold. And then I just had a warm bath. How about you, Emily?
I have so many that it's difficult to pick out one.
I'll pick one.
What can I pick out? Well, I enjoyed painting the fresco with you. That was one of the first things I did. So.
What's the story behind this place, and how did it become an artist residency?
Oh, that's a long story.
Yeah.
Well, you say it's long, but actually it came rather quick. So I knew that house needed people. For me to support me living here, I needed to create some kind of income. I put the house for rent. A few people came who were artists to stay long term, and they wanted to do work here. Kind of the house makes creativity flow. It's kind of I'm here and I became it's nothing to do here. It's nothing nowhere to go here. I think the way I feel it is like if I have a project on the run, I wake up in the morning and I get so obsessed where I left it last night, and I go run to where I left it off, and I continue, and before you know it's 5 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
And so kind of all days merges into one.
Yeah.
I think that's really special. I think if you don't know what day it is, that means you're happy.
Yeah. I remember that day that I left. It was cold in the morning, and everyone was up to say goodbye. And all I could think was that it was more surreal to leave than it ever was to arrive, with the grass and the green trees. It all seemed so different to me then.